Martio here. Welcome to another Battle of the Debuts. We take bands and compare their debuts, but this one's really different because it's basically one band that's split into two. So first thing I'll do is apologise about the light today. It's dreadful. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's still too dark to not have the light on. It's a very dingy day here in Northampton, so I do apologise that it's a bit dark and dingy today. But let's get back to this band. The band we're talking about is Barclay James Harvest, of course. Now, Barclay James Harvest, as we know, were formed in 1966 by Les Holroyd, John Lees, Mel Pritchard and Stuart Wolstenholme. Very successful in them early years. Stuart left in 1979, so the three others carried on with a little bit of success, but in 1998 things went sour. Differences amongst members, and they saw this band that has essentially split into two groups, but of each that retained the name Barclay James Harvest as part of its name. So John Lees somehow managed to get Stuart to come back and do some work with him, and Mel Pritchard went and worked with Les. So they both had these debut albums, but sadly it was Stuart's last real album because he left and he died in 2010. Sadly, in sad circumstances, took his own life. And in 2004, of course, Mel Pritchard died suddenly of a heart attack. So, but when they both made their debut albums, they were in the band. So let's look at the band that came out first. So the first album after the split that came out in 1999 was John Lees' Barclay James Harvest. And the album in question is called Nexus. So on here we've got John Lees on vocals, guitars and recorder, and he produced the album as well. On keyboards and vocals and acoustic guitars and harmonicas is Stuart Wolstenholme. Drums and percussion was Kevin Whitehead, and vocals and bass Craig Fletcher. So the first track on this album is called Festival. This was a sort of continuation of the Barclay James Harvest sound at the time. Very melodic, very gentle thing. It's a great vocal from John. Some nice guitar work on it as ever from John Lees. Very underrated guitar player in my opinion. And it is a very nice track. Then we get the Iron Maiden, which is obviously an old Barclay James Harvest number, redone. Sounds solid to me. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Then we get Brave New World. This is a track that really does sound like old style Barclay James Harvest of the 70s. It's got that definitely got the Wolstenholme touch to it. It's written by both of them, so yes, it is a very good track. Hors D'Oeuvre is the next one. This is a very short piece. It's an orchestral thing of 56 seconds, which goes nicely into another classic from the band, Mockingbird. Still good as ever. It'll always be a good track. I still love that, and it's a really good version of it. I do like it. Then we get my favourite track on this album actually, and it's called Sitting Upon a Shelf. Again, we've got that classic sound in Barclay James Harvest that I really like from the early days. It sits there nicely and it's a strong song. Then we get another version of Him, still a classic, nice version of it. Then we get The Devils That I Keep. Very good track again. Certainly it was great to see Wolstenholme doing some work again with John Lees. That's the highlight of this album. It didn't seem that he'd left the band really. He came back in and he was still writing good songs with John, and it's a really strong track. Then we get Titles, that classic of all the Beatles songs in a song. Still good as ever. Still a very clever track, I think. Then we get Float. Very nice track again. Stuart's keyboard playing on this is great. Then we end up with two other Barclay James Harvest tracks. Loving Is Easy and Star. Still very good. Now, if you remember when I ranked these albums, I said about that I don't really want to hear Barclay James Harvest songs on an album, rehash songs. But I'm going to look at it in a different context here. I'm just taking it as an album, face down album. I think they're really good versions of the songs. I don't dislike them at all, and I never have. The new songs I think are really good. It's just classic sounding Barclay James Harvest for me. So on the whole, I really do enjoy this album as an album on its own. So what do the critics think? Well, there's not much written about it. It didn't chart. It didn't get in the album charts. And there's no one actually wrote a whole review. I couldn't find any reviews on it. But what I did find on the Prog archive site is that 53 people did put lots of things, and they put them all together. So there's 53 ratings, and it was split into different categories. There was a 5-star category that was an essential masterpiece of progression rock music. 8% people gave it 5 stars. 4 stars, excellent addition to any prog rock music collection. 27% gave it 4 stars. 3 stars we got good but non-essential. 38% of people gave it a 3-star. And collectors and fans only, which is a rating of 2 stars, 15% of the reviewers gave it 2 stars. And 1 star, which is poor only for completists just like me. 1 star, 12% gave it 1 star. So when they averaged it out, it gave it an average ranking of 3.04 stars. So pretty good. So on that, we'll have a look at the nuts and bolts, what I think and what the reviewers think. Song quality. The new songs are really good. It's going back to the old days. So for them songs alone, because they are all, I can't really judge them on the classics, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Now the production on the album is really good. Sounds nice. The remakes sound really good, to be quite honest. They're using the technology of 1999, and they did a really good job of it. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Reception. Now this was difficult to judge. I mean, I didn't buy it when it came out, but I have got it now, and I do like it. So what are the ratings put? I took the upper half. I discounted the 5 stars and looked at the 4-star and 3-star ratings, and they're pretty high. So I'm going to give this a reception of 4 out of 5. Cover. It's alright. Hands looks like string, doesn't it? Seen better, seen worse. So for cover design, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. So a total for Nexus by John Lees's Barclay James Harvest is 14. Pretty good score. So let's move on now to Les Holroyd's version of Barclay James Harvest, which came out in 2001, and this of course featured Mel Pritchard, former Sad Cafe members Ian Wilson and Michael Byron Herr, as well as Steve Butler and Steve Piggott, who'd worked with people like the Cher and Mike and the Mechanics, and Rabbit Bundrick, who'd worked with the Who. So in 2002 they released the album Revolution Days, and there was some. Roy Martin came in and helped with a little bit of the drumming as well. So the first track on this one, well, I'll tell you who was in the band as well. I have, but keyboards were Steve Piggott, keyboards and guitars Colin Brown, lead guitar Mike Byron Herr, and vocals Les Holroyd, bass, piano, and all that sort of thing. So the first track on this one is called It's My Life. This has got a catchy little beat in it. The keyboard really sounds good on this. It's not a bad track actually. Good little opener. Missing You. I can't get into this. It just a little bit. I want to fall asleep. It's a shame. Although Les' vocals are really nice, he's got a really nice voice. I just don't think that track does anything for me. That was Then. This isn't bad. It's very progressive. It's got a nice little bit beat from it. The drumming on here is really good from Mel Pritchard. He was a good drummer. And the vocal from Les is just spot on. I really like that. Then we get Prelude. This again does sound really like old style Barclay James Harvest. It's my favourite track. The drumming on here is exquisite. From Mel, really good track. Then we get a track called January Morning. Bit like what today is in October. It's terrible. I like this one. It's got a nice beat to it, although it has got a little bit of electronic wizardry in it, which doesn't really suit me, but pleasant enough track. And then we get a track called Quiero El, a really good track, but it's got some nice guitar work in it, but it doesn't really rock my boat. But it's not a bad track. It's totally cool. This is rather dull, lacklustre, no imagination. It's just churning out a song. Life is for Living. This is more like it. This is good old-fashioned Barclay James Harvest sound. One of the better tracks on the album. Sleepy Sunday. I just think it lingers like a smell that just won't go away. It's not a very good song at all. It's very dreary. Revolution Day, love this. It's got some great riffs, good little rocker. Then Marlene from Berlin. It's an okay song. It's very mediocre. Okay, that's the album. What do I think of it? I mean, these are all original songs, but there are some good ones and some bad ones. I did some of the ones I didn't like are just so dull. You know, they looked like they wanted 20,000 volts put through them to play them. They just didn't sound right. Although Les's voice sounds good, the songs are not very memorable. Once again, it didn't chart, so we've got the same ratings as on the previous album. There were 48 ratings on this one. The 5-star one's the Essentials, 11% of the reviewers go 11%. The 4 stars, an excellent addition to any prog rock, was 17. The 3-star ones, good but non-essential, 21. 2 stars from the collector fans only, 40%, and poor only for completists, 11%. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of this. Song quality, like the John Lees version of the band, there are some really good songs, but these are all originals, and I just felt that some of the more dull and melodic ones, the lyrics were a little bit not really good, without being rude, but the songs that worked were really nice. So again, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. Production, I can't knock the production on it. Listening to it, even though some of the songs are a little bit dull, that they're produced nicely. So I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5. Reception, again, it didn't chart, but when you go through that rating score, it's more about a fans only album, and to be quite honest, I do agree. So I'm going to give Reception a 3 out of 5. Cover design, I like the idea of Revolution, but it's just a white background with a red star on it. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. So for Les Holroyd's version of Barclay James Harvest and Revolution Days, we have a total of 13 out of 20. Oh, what do we do today? Well, on the whole, they're not the best albums I've heard from Barclay James Harvest, but the one I really do like them most has to be Nexus, John Lees. And I think it's only down to one thing. It's got Stuart Wolstenholme on it. For me, he was always one of the main players in this band, and after he left, the band did suffer. He to me is the engine room of this band, the band. So the tracks that he wrote for the Nexus album are really good, and they do remind me so much of the old days. And the versions they did of the classics are really good. So today's winner for me is what the scores say. It is Nexus by the John Lees band. But have you got a different opinion? If you want to listen to these, the best place to listen to them is actually on YouTube, because I think Nexus is on Spotify, but I'm not sure Revolution Days is. So go and have a listen, make up your mind, and you tell me which you think is a better album. It's a tough one today, because if you're a Barclay James Harvest fan, you've got to sort of split which version of the band you liked. Okay, that's all for this one. I'll be back later with an album artwork, and we have got one of my favourite bands, ELO. We're going to look at their studio album covers, their live ones, their box sets, and also a few of the compilations, because there's about 40, so I've picked some of the ones that are quite good to look at. So join me for that. So bye for now.